Hey monkeys, how you doing? Damian Keys here. So yesterday I asked you what you would do with 100 grand. If I gave you £100,000 to spend on your band, what is it that you would do? And it was really interesting. Firstly, I was overwhelmed with how many of you came back and responded on my YouTube, my Facebook and my Instagram. Give me a like, give me a subscribe, the huge. But also, it was amazing how many of you had really put some thought into this, really actually taken this in, thought about it, and given a really meticulous, planned out answer, which was fantastic. But a lot of you were asking, what would you do with the money? What would I do with £100,000 if I was in your shoes? So I thought I'd make this video. I want to make a video on what I would do with 100 grand, but also there were quite a few things that cropped up that I wouldn't spend money on, and I want to talk about why I wouldn't spend the money. And this is hypothetical, you know, this is a fun game where if I gave you 100 grand, what would you spend on? So there's no right or wrong answers, but I'm going to tell you why I wouldn't spend the money on some of the things that kept cropping up answer after answer. I'm going to tell you why I wouldn't spend it on and what I would spend it on. So we had loads of great answers, and it was really fun. Loads of people came through and said everything from drugs and hookers through to TV. A van was a big one. Lots of people wanted a van, and a lot of people wanted to spend between 20 and 30 grand on a van, which is something I wouldn't do, which we'll get into. Lots of people wanted to spend it on exposure. Some people wanted to spend between 30 and 50 grand on PR. TV was a big one. A few people said they wanted to just get if I've got big money, just get it straight onto TV. What else was there? There was, gear was a big one as well. Lots of people wanted to spend it on gear, wanted new guitars, new amps, new drums. So I just thought, well, in which case, let's go through some of this stuff. Let's tell you what I would spend it on if it were me. And again, this is just my opinion and this is what I would do. So here's my little blackboard, right? So firstly, I've got 100 grand to play with. So the first thing is, what's my goal? Okay, because unless we have the goal, what are we spending money towards? We don't know what we're trying to achieve. We're just spending money going, I want some new gear. I want to go in the studio. I want to go to Abbey Road. Fantastic. What are we trying to achieve? Okay, well, I'm going to go big because I'm a going big kind of guy. So I'm going to say what we're trying to achieve here is very simple. World domination, or maybe world Damianation for the boys. Secondly, we want to work on the objectives. So this is the goal, world domination. However, what we're doing with the objectives is we've got 100 grand. So we've broken it down. This is what are we trying to do with the objectives for this 100 grand. So firstly, and this is really important, I would spend time on the most important things, okay? Now, bear with me because this is important. I would spend my time on the most important things, and that gives me the most amount of time. I'll come back to this in a second. The next thing after that is, my next objective is a long-term strategy. I'm not just going to try and jump to the end. I'm going to have a long-term strategy where I'm building up slowly, and whilst I'm building up, I'm going to build up assets and not liabilities. Now, I know we're getting into some really businessy stuff there, but this is crucial, and we'll come back to this in a minute. Okay, so we've got a goal, we've got objectives. Now comes on to the most important bit. What would I spend 100K? I'd spend 100 grand on. Well, one of the big things which everything revolves around for me is control. You know me, that's what I talk about all the time. How you're going to get control. We're in a long-term strategy. We're not just going to throw 100 grand at the TV and go, yee, oh, it didn't work, and then it's gone. And that was what I felt was a big part about where people's plans were breaking down, which was control and exposure. Everybody wanted to jump to exposure. If I get a PR company, I win. Maybe, but it's such a gamble. It's the same thing with going on TV. If I get on TV, I'll win. Oh, it didn't work. If I just get a tour support with Ed Sheeran, I'll pay £100,000 and I'll win. It's just a huge, huge gamble, and I wouldn't do that. I'd be in this for the long term, building up momentum, building up slowly. And it all comes down to this word here, which is control. If I have the control long term, then I win. And I can then start to bring in people as and when I need them. So in order to have control, there's these 4 bits, and they are in a bit of an order. But time is really important. I put here only doing the most important things. When I was at ACM, the guy who owned that said to me one time, he's like, only spend the time doing the most important things. It's very easy to get sidetracked with loads of things that you think you need to do, but you've got to just clear your diary and spend time on that. Now, in order to get the most amount of time, one of the things I would spend money on is anything that gets in my way. Like, for example, this is a weird answer, but life admin. So, you know when you go, oh, my flat's a mess, or oh, I'll wash my clothes, I've got to iron my clothes, all of those stupid little admin jobs that just take up loads and loads of extra time, insuring a car, or all of those details that just get in the way of you actually doing shit. We've all got millions of those little things. I would try and get rid of those. And in order to do that, what I would probably do is I'd find someone, or a cleaner, or a PA, for example, who can just take that shit away from me so I can work on the most important things. Now, we've got £100,000 to play with here, so bear with me. But I would bring someone in that I could just say, take this piffly shit away from me. I've got big fish to fry. This is what I'm going to do. I don't need to know when my pants are going to be washed. So therefore, I need every single hour. And this is what comes back to this. This is really important. The reason why I need time is because this is the big bit of why the plans were falling down, in my opinion, for what the people were writing on their comments, is because people think they're farming things out to other people, it will be success. But let me tell you something. In order for my personal brand, my YouTube channel, my thing that I do, in order for me to make this successful, there is only one person that can do that. Me. That's the only one who can do that. I can farm out to do things, but at the end of the day, it all comes down to me making the decisions and me actually putting the stuff out there and me actually making the content and doing everything. It's all about me. And if it's a band, it's all about the band. You can farm out little bits, but you have to do all the work. It's all in there. And in order to do that, you need time, you need organization. So I need time. So the first thing I do is I get a PA, a cleaner, and anyone who can just take shit off me. And then with that time, what I would do is the next bit is I'd start to think about what content I was going to make, because content is king. We know that we've got to get stuff out. A lot of people were saying things like, I'd go into Abbey Road. Well, let me tell you something about Abbey Road. If you want to book Abbey Road, it costs you £2,000 a day for Studio 2. £2,000 a day plus £500 to £1,000 for one of their engineers. So you're looking at about £2,500 to £3,000 a day. If you're going to go make a record, how long are you going to be in there? 2 weeks? 3 weeks? So you've just burnt £40,000. If you've recorded your album in Abbey Road, is that going to guarantee you any success? No, it isn't. It just isn't. If you're Noel Gallagher and you've got the money, great. But you haven't. You've got 100 grand. Why would you burn 30 to 40 grand on going to Abbey Road? You don't need to do that yet. That's a luxury. You know, going and paying 1,500 quid for that drum kit and 5 grand for that bass and that bass amp and 5 grand for that guitar and that guitar amp. That's fantastic. But is that going to get you success? No, it's just something that you fancy. It's something that you want. It's a little story that you go, oh, we went to record in Abbey Road. It isn't going to guarantee any success. But what is going to guarantee you success is when making this content, getting out there. And by content, I mean singles, I mean albums, whatever you want to do. I mean videos. I mean making things that you can actually build this audience with. So for me personally, I'd start to think about what content I was able to build with this time. And then from there, I'd also be looking at investments. Now, let me tell you why I wouldn't go and spend 25 to 30 grand on a van, because a van is a liability. Yes, I know it can get you around the country and you can start to go on tours with the van, but how much are you going to gig? What, 30, 40, 50 times a year? It doesn't add up to spend 25 to 30 grand on a van when, for example, you can lease a van, a brand spanking new van, which is a splitter van, for 200 quid, 250 quid a month. I mean, I leased a van for last year and the year before, 2 years, and I top spec because I wanted a heavy van. I wanted aircon because, you know, need aircon in the summer. You know, I was right spoilt brat about it, and that cost me about 400, and that was like, I was way over the top with what I needed for a van. And I remember I could have got one for about 2 to 250. So therefore, you could spend 3 grand a year on a van. Why spend 30 grand? Why don't we maximize this money rather than blowing it? So I wouldn't get a van because that's a liability. But what I would do is I'd look at investments. Now, when I say investments, how many of you are thinking, you know, spending money to make money? I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about long-term investments. The biggest long-term investment that you can have is you. Your brain is your knowledge. So for me, this here would be education. And by education, I don't just mean going back to college. I don't know if that fits into the camera. I'm not just talking about education and going back to college. What I'm talking about is I'm talking about learning, about marketing, how you can get the right message to the right people. People keep telling me Facebook advertising shit. It's not, it's the best thing in the world, but you have to learn how to do it. It's very complicated, but you can learn. You've got 100 grand to go and pick people's brains. You can go and find experts in their field. You can go and invest, instead of going to Abbey Road and spending 30 grand on a studio, you can actually go and build your own studio for 20 grand, 25, 30 grand, which is a decent enough studio. Anyone who's telling me is going, oh, it's not enough for a studio. It is. It absolutely is. If you spend £20,000 on a little home setup that you can make demos where you can just go and hire a rehearsal room, take your mics down there, record the drums, bring it home, and actually make good demos to look after your audience, you've just spent 20, 30 grand on an investment which is long-term strategy instead of short-term. Because the problem with the liability is if you spend 30 grand on going into Abbey Road and the band breaks up or the album doesn't do well, what have you got to show for it? You've just got the memories of going into Abbey Road. Whereas if you've got the studio where you can just say, no, I'm going to record a song today and tomorrow and the next day and the day after that and the day after that, is it going to be as good quality as Abbey Road? No. Does that matter right now? No, it doesn't make any difference. Not yet. Fourth album, third album, brilliant. Second album, you've sold 1 million records, great, fantastic, do what you like, who cares? Right now, we don't want to do that. What we're trying to do is we're trying to build momentum, look after an audience and get the excitement out. And then from there, once we've got that, once I've got loads of time to myself, and after the time, I'm actually decided on what the content is that's going to go out on a weekly basis. I'd start for this bit, for example, I think it's all about people. So what I would do here is I'd look at a specialist. So for example, the big thing I'm thinking for this video is if I was going to invest, I'd invest in people. So for example, in order to get time, I'd get a PA myself, because I want that. I'm not in a band. If I was in a band, I'd have 3 other people to just order around, but I haven't. So I'd want a PA so that I could just say, take this shit off me, go and find a cleaner, get rid of that. It'll cost a couple of grand, fine. When it comes to content, I'd go and find a Morgan and I'd say, Morgan, we're gonna make content every single week and we can decide what the content's gonna be. It can be funny or it can be sad or it can be political or it can be whatever you want it to be, but I want content going out every single week. That's your responsibility because you are a specialist in the field. So therefore, he's going to be in charge of content. And from there, you've got time, you've got content, you can spend more time investing in learning on how this stuff's going to work. So you've got to remember that this is not just a year-long strategy. 100 grand's not going to be gone in 3 months or 6 months. What we're doing now is we're thinking 40 years down the line. We're thinking long-term career. If this band doesn't work, we've got the next band or the next band. All of this stuff which is in here, all of the stuff which I learned in my first covers band when I was 19 years old, I took in to building the part-time school at the ACM. All of the information I learned from that, I took into building BIM. All of the information I took from building BIM went into building the management company, which went into investing into the agency, which has gone into the Black Rock. All of it is information and education that's going in and I'm learning. And I'm not just farming it out going, ooh, this is scary, someone else can do it. I'm taking responsibility of the control, so I'm in charge. I'm not letting any other fucker come in unless they are true specialists. And that comes on to the last point, which is exposure. Everyone has flagged up exposure, and I absolutely agree. We need exposure because if you're not getting in front of people, how is this going to fly? Absolutely right. However, everyone's forgetting this bit and they're jumping onto exposure. If I get onto TV, I win because because people will see it and just go, brilliant, that's the next thing. Doesn't work. It just doesn't work like that. Nowadays, getting in front of people is the easiest that it's ever been before. And I can tell you that today, I went and did a mock-up advert where I pretended to set up a band advert to see how cheap or how many people I could get in front of for £1,000. And we've got 100,000, but even for 100 quid. But for £1,000, I was getting in front of 40,000 people, 30 to 40,000 people. That's a crazy amount of people. Getting in front of them is easy. Getting in front of them and making them pay attention to you, that is hard. And if you go on tour with Ed Sheeran, it guarantees you fuck all. And if you go on TV, it guarantees you fuck all. Getting in front of people is just is just a way of getting eyeballs on you. Unless you can actually do something, make something of that, get people to go, this is good, and pay attention, then it isn't. And too many people are being egotistical about this bit and going, I'm the finished product. You stick me in front of Ed Sheeran's crowd, or you stick me in front of Queens of the Stone Age's crowd, and I'm away. Well, I've got news for you. Unfortunately, I don't want to be unpopular, and I know I'm going to get some hate for this, but that is not true. It doesn't work like that. Because if you think about your own viewing habits, how many times have you been to see a band and there's a support band that you've just gone, this band though, and I don't care about the headline act. This support band's it. I'm just happy now. You don't. You've forgotten about them. So it's great. It helps. It's a little bit of momentum. But if you go and pay 30 grand to go and get on a tour, it doesn't mean shit. Unfortunately, it is a very good stepping stone. So exposure, yes, absolutely. This is important. But exposure without all of this stuff, to me, is just a gamble. And I'm not into gambles. I'm into calculated risk. If I'm going to do something, I'm going to take control of it, and I'm going to do baby steps all the way. And I don't just want to kind of jump to the end like some kind of X factor thing, because that potentially might happen. You know, you might just put 50 grand into a PR company and they might happen to get in touch with Kerrang, and Kerrang might love it, and you may all of a sudden be on tour with Queens of the Stone Age, and fantastic. But do you want to take that gamble? I don't want to take that gamble. That to me is far too much of a gamble with 100 grand and go, oh, it didn't pay off, because the chances are probably won't. And then all of a sudden you're back to stage one where you're at now, instead of setting yourself up with a long-term strategy and being able to do this again and again and again. So for me, all of these things, they go into this control, but I need the time. I'm investing in people. I'm also very aware that I haven't put a bunch of money down, but what I would say is I would invest in people. I would invest in somebody that could organize me and take away a lot of the shitty little jobs that I don't want to do, I haven't got time for, because I've got big shit to do in the control bit, and that would allow me the time. And that would allow me this idea of investing and sort of figuring out if I'm going to hire a studio or if I'm going to buy a lot of camera gear, and I'm going to do a lot of educational stuff. I'm going to spend that time learning how Facebook ads work, how marketing works, how pay-per-click work, or anything that I just feel like I can really get the message out myself, even if it's how to make records myself. Whatever I decide that to be, it's making me in control. And from there, which content, because I need the time for the content in order to invest, all of this stuff. And the exposure bit, to me, is the last part of it. That to me is once you've got all your house in order and you've got this great content that you're making, which you know what works because you've invested your time into it, at that point, then we're going to say, right, now let's get the message out. And at that point, I feel like you are working on a plan long term rather than blowing the whole thing in 6 months and then having that gamble finish. So that's what I would spend the money on. I would spend the money on people, specialist help, but I wouldn't spend it on just farming it out. I'd bring them in-house so I'm in control of them. I know I sound like a dictator now, but I'd be in control of them rather than just farming it out and being like, good luck with that money, see what happens. But I want to know your thoughts, because that's what I would do. I would invest in control. I'm a control freak, that's fair enough. One thing I thought was interesting was a lot of people said, if I had 100 grand, I'd come to you and ask you how much you would charge. And this was a classic example of this bit. I mean, coming to me and asking my help is flattering and amazing, and I'll help any of you. That's what I'm here for. But there's no guarantees I'd be able to wave a magic wand, just like a PR company, just like anyone else. The job is on you, not me. If I can help, I'll help. You can pay me all the money in the world, doesn't guarantee you shit. So, but thanks for saying that, it's lovely. But that's why you've got to take control, because having a great producer, brilliant, doesn't guarantee you shit. Having me to do marketing and branding for bands, great, but doesn't guarantee you anything. You have to take control. You have to be self-aware and have to see the problems with the band to self-manage, to get it certain momentum, to build the audience and to set yourself up long-term. And at that point, then you're totally in control. That's the win for me. That's the win. So that's my thoughts. So if you've got any questions, if you've got any comments, if you just want to troll me, call me a dickhead and tell me I'm wrong, that's totally fine too. Otherwise, like, subscribe, follow the usual stuff, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.